All right, welcome everyone. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Hawaii Retirement Show. Got a super special episode. I'm so excited. We have Jim Saulnier is our guest from Jim Saulnier and Associates. He's a certified financial planner and host of, in my opinion, the best retirement planning podcast radio show out there, the Retirement and IRA Show. Jim with his co-host there, Chris Stein, and I know some other people from your firm. Jacob has been on a lot. There's a ton of great information there. Can be a little high level maybe for some, but I think if you listen long enough, you'll kind of pick things up and a ton of great information. Yeah, so Jim, if you want to introduce yourself to the audience, I know you've been doing this thing a long time, both the radio show, podcast, and financial planning. If you don't mind just telling us a little bit about yourself.
Jason, I want to say thanks for having me on, but I don't think I have the best retirement
I
podcast
said
out
I
there.
said in my
I think there's
opinion.
a lot of people who will dispute you, mostly colleagues of mine who have their own podcasts as well. But thank you. As far as me, yes, my name is Jim Saulnier, if you want the French Canadian way. And you, Jason, are in Hawaii. Are you a native? I'm just curious.
No, I married into a local family here.
Okay.
I'm originally from the Northeast, Philadelphia area.
Philly. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, right now I'm in Colorado. I moved out there from Boston, south of Boston, 27 years ago. Started my firm when I moved. I originally was a police officer for years at a city called New Bedford, south of Boston. And I started going to school at Boston University in the evenings. I would work as a police officer during the day, head up to Boston at night and go to BU in the evening and study their program for financial planners. This is back in the 90s, long before financial planning really became what it is today. I always had an interest and a love of it. I won't bore you with how I got into it, but I essentially bought strawberries for a woman once. And what she ended up saying to me in the parking lot just really impacted me and forced me to look at my life and my career differently in my early 30s. And ever since then, I've been practicing retirement planning. I have a small firm, 8 employees, based out of Colorado, but we work with people throughout the United States. And in fact, most of my advisors don't even live in Colorado. And I myself am thinking of leaving Colorado for Ohio. And that's about it. I
Very cool.
am excited to be here, chat with your listeners for a little while, and go from there.
So the podcast, it started as a radio show, right?
It
Is
did. It started, gosh, I'd say 12, 15 years ago now. I can't
okay.
remember. A small radio station in Greeley called KFKA asked if I would be interested in doing a show with them. Started as a live show on Saturday mornings for a half hour, 30 minutes every Saturday morning. Chris and I would drive in around 8 o'clock. I think the show started at 8, so we would meet about 7 and drive into the radio station. And from a half-hour show, it became an hour show and then eventually a 2-hour show. And I always remember Chris and I were both getting fed up with sacrificing our Saturday mornings. And one day I asked the radio show engineer if there was going to be a way, because they were recording the episodes. I said, is there a way we could take this recording and put it on your website? And anytime somebody wanted to listen to it, they could. And I remember him ripping me a new one, Jason. What are you talking about? You can't do that. What you're asking for. And he's running down this whole reasons why what I'm asking for can't be done. And I'm tech ignorant. I have no idea. And I go back to the office, and I had a small firm back then. I had one admin, and she's still with me today after a very long hiatus. She took about an 8-year hiatus, but she's still in the office today. But at the time, she was in her late 20s. And I went in and I told her that. I says, well, so much for getting my Saturdays free. And she said, well, you should try this thing called a podcast. I was like, what the heck is that? And she explains to me on this thing now that we all have, she had one of the first iPhones ever. She says, well, this thing from Apple, this phone, and you can put recordings and people can listen to them at any time they want, and they're called a podcast. And Jason, I didn't believe it. It was, you might as well have put me on the moon because it made no sense to me, especially after what the radio show engineer was saying. So I said, "Do you know how to do that?" And she was like, "No, I have no idea." I says, "There's your job. You figure out how to do that." So anyway, she did. She figured it out. Radio station agreed to send me the recordings. We started putting them on Apple, and to this day, I don't know how to do it. Staff does it. But the show grew in popularity. And about a year in, maybe a year and a half in, we started just receiving emails from people throughout the country. And Chris and I originally put it on Apple, and then the radio station, you're going to laugh at this, the radio station would run promos throughout the day. The Retirement and IRA show, Saturday mornings, 8 to 10. Listen live or anytime you want on Apple iTunes. And we were just doing it really for the people in and around Northern Colorado. And gee, I couldn't listen to the show on Saturday morning. Let me
Right.
listen to it on Apple iTunes, assuming they even had a smartphone back then. But much to our surprise, and I'm sure you run into the same thing, you find people throughout the world, if not nation,
Sure.
listening to you. And that's kind of how the Retirement and IRA show grew. And I think that's how you ended up finding me.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great show. And to anybody listening, if you haven't listened already, give it a listen. I'm sure you'll love it. Yeah, so I guess what I wanted to talk to you about is you've kind of developed over the years, and I'm saying this, I mean, we're just meeting for the first time, but me listening to your podcast, it seems like over the years you developed this philosophy and strategy and approach to retirement planning. And I just wanted to share some of that. We won't probably have time to go through all of it. I mean, you could probably spend, a week talking about all the nuances. But I kind of want to go through on a high level your philosophy and strategy. Now, I want to preface this by saying everybody's situation is different, right? And what works for somebody might not work for another person analytically, emotionally, whatever it might be, right? I mean, everybody has their unique financial situation, their unique family, their unique life. But I think traditionally retirement planning was kind of looked at. I think it's evolving. It was kind of viewed as you got a big portfolio. We're going to run these Monte Carlo simulations. We're going to use a safe withdrawal rate or, your guardrails, a dynamic distribution, and that's kind of it, right? And then what you talk about and what I love is diving a little deeper, right? Peeling back the onion, and I believe you call it the see-through portfolio or the time segment investing. And there's a lot of pieces within there. So where do you think the best place is to start?
You, you, you're all over there. I do. You are correct, Jason and listeners. I do have a different and unique approach to retirement planning. I'm one where I question everything. It's just in my nature, and kind of a few things happened to me. One, again, I was a police officer, so I spent 8 years running into what I call now on my podcast the other guy.
Hmm.
And it's just, as humans, we have this self-defense mechanism. I think we're the only living beings that truly understand our own mortality and death and the concepts around that. You look at a dog, I love dogs. I don't think they have any conception of that. They're always just so happy. But we go through our lives knowing that it can end at any time, and it's going to end at any time. And one of the ways we can handle that is to always think, well, it's going to be someone else. Yes, I know people are going to get this disease or that disease or have this accident or this calamity happen to them. But it's always going to be the other guy. So I use that verbiage as I talk to my clients and as I talk to our podcast listeners. And one of the things that always struck me as odd, even back in the 90s when I was just studying this at Boston University, is we were told even back then, and that was just around the time that the safe withdrawal rate was even coming out and about, but that these newfangled 401ks, and in the 90s, they were newfangled, they're only about a decade old. And people were starting to be pushed into these 401ks and out of this lifetime stream of steady income. And back then, they would teach us about the three-legged stool of a solid retirement, which at the time was pension, Social Security, and savings. So they were preaching that those three legs of that stool were wonderful and that would form a great retirement. But then in the same breath, the same instructors are telling us the stool is broken, that 401ks now are going to take away one of the legs of that stool, pension income. Okay, so I sat there and I would think of that. But then as the studies continued to go on and I started learning about annuities, and I know that's a four-letter word for most retirees, and there's a lot of crap-ass annuities out there, I can't stand them. But I have a simple approach. I call it the KISS approach. Keep it simply SPIA. Keep it simply SPIA, KISS. And my point is, for people who don't quite understand, if the pension truly was the third leg of that stool, and the 401ks replaced it, I always thought, well, why don't we take some of the 401k and fix that leg of that stool? So that just kind of ingrained into my mind. So I had this mindset of a cop that I'm always going to meet the other guy, that sooner or later something is going to happen to people. And in my simple approach, again, I thought, okay, three legs was the great thing. 401ks removed the leg. We can replace a leg if need be. And I started and just took that with me throughout my career. But then as I looked at the safe withdrawal rate, and I would work with people with however much you have, the number of zeros is immaterial. Whether you have saved $500,000 or $5 million, the concepts remain the same. We were told you can only spend 4% of it. Or it could be 4.3 now. According to Bill Benjamin, it's 4.7. According to Morningstar, it's 3.9. Every single year it changes. It's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And that never resonated with me, Jason, because I thought to myself, why am I going to tell someone who is 60? I'm 60 now, but when I got into this, I was only in my late 30s. How can I tell somebody who's 60 and saved $1 million or $2 million? You can't spend more than 40 or 80,000 of it. When I know that at some given time, he may not see 68, 69 to 70. So this whole notion that all spending had to fall within a safe withdrawal rate never made sense to me. So I started thinking, well, wait a minute. That woman I bought strawberries for many years ago that caused me to go to BU and start studying this, she couldn't afford a basic item, food. And I started thinking that there's a series of basic items that every human needs. And every human needs, in my opinion, food, utilities, transportation, housing, and healthcare expenses. 5 very broad categories, from smallest to largest. But all of those elements and all the subcategories, if you will, under food, utilities, transportation, housing, and healthcare, all of that spending, I haven't met a human yet who doesn't need that until the day they drop dead. So if you are going to need to cover those items for the rest of your life, no matter how long you live, why not cover those items with a stream of income, guaranteed income that will last for the rest of your life, no matter how long you live? So it got me to really wanting to learn all I could about Social Security, all I can about pensions. Most pensions in the private sector are gone, but government employees generally still have some pretty darn good pensions, and federal government employees and some larger private corporations still offer pensions. So let's learn all we can about Social Security. Let's learn all we can about pensions. And let's look at this 4-letter word called an annuity that we're told we should hate and vile. But let's look at some of that, the most simple level, a single premium immediate annuity, and figure out how much of those 3 income sources is it going to take to cover all of those expenses? And I coined a phrase. It's not really a phrase, but metaphorically, Jason, tell your listeners, it's like that bottomless cup of coffee. I don't know if you remember, I remember, mostly because I'm older, going to cafes in Massachusetts and diners, a lot of those roadside diners, and you would get a bottomless cup of coffee. You got this thick, heavy ceramic white coffee mug, and the waitress will come by. One hand had Sanka, one hand had a pot of regular coffee, and she would walk around and pour whichever one you want. And it was always Sanka back then. It was only decaf you could get. And this cup of coffee would magically always stay full. And you would drink that coffee to your heart's content. You never worried about it because you knew it was going to be refilled. I took that concept and said, if we can highlight and show somebody that their food, utilities, transportation, housing, and healthcare expenses are fully satisfied for the rest of their life, and we pull out of their portfolio the money it's going to take to do that, whether they believe in buying a single premium immediate annuity to cover the shortage between pension and Social Security, or if they want to satisfy it with withdrawals, that's up to them. But we pull that out of the portfolio. Then we have a smaller portfolio. And we sit there with them and we now look in it and we say, okay, what do you want to do to help protect you from aging and long-term care? We call it the SEAL reserve, SEAL, savings for emergencies, aging, and long-term care. What are we going to do to satisfy that? Some people, they don't want to do anything. Other people, mostly because they've experienced it in their family, they go to extremes and they'll pull more money from their portfolio for that. What's left after that, Jason? If I covered your food, utilities, transportation, housing, and healthcare, I covered your savings for emergencies, aging, and long-term care. The dollars that are left, I coined, that's your fund number. That is essentially your budget. I'm not going to limit you to 3.9, 4, 4.7, whatever the hell everybody is saying the safe withdrawal rate is. If I can show you out of, let's just say you had a hypothetical $2 million portfolio, if we pull the money out for the food, utilities, transportation, housing, and healthcare, pull the money out for your SEAL reserve, the dollars that are left are predominantly your discretionary fund spending. I call it your fund number. And we encourage people to spend it as fast or as slow as you want. Now, there's a lot more to that than what I shared with you, but you wanted the short version, and that's as short as I can make it.
No, that was great. So so then now I'm gonna prod and we'll get a little bit deeper. That was great though. Great highlight there. So essentially, retirement planning, when somebody might ask themselves, okay, how much do I need to retire? What is my retirement going to look like? There's a formula, right? And like you said, some of it's intuitive. All right, you got to cover your basic needs, right? And then you have this emergency buffer, long-term care, and then you have whatever's left over. What I find is the aging and long-term care, all of this stuff we're working off of a ton of assumptions. We're working off of,
Absolutely.
but the aging and long-term care one to me is the hardest one to really nail down because there's so much variability in potential need or not need. And then there's insurance versus self-funding. And then, I mean, a lot of it is determined by how much resources somebody might have, right? Because, I mean, if there's just, unfortunately, some people might be limited, right? And in that case, you can only do so much. And some people have ample resources to allocate towards that. But do you find that as well? There's just a lot of assumptions and a lot of variability in trying to pin down how to approach that aging long-term care number.
No, absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head. And we say this all the time to people we work. By far, the hardest calculation to make is the SEAL reserve, savings for emergencies, aging, and long-term care, because of the variability built into that. And the case, and we have to sit there and often talk to people and get them to understand. And with a couple, husband, wife, wife, whatever they may be, as a couple, that's the riskiest time. After the death of the first spouse, it's much easier to satisfy the long-term care needs for the surviving spouse. So it's always at the couple level where it's much more difficult for a variety of reasons that would become a whole separate show. But if you stop and think about it, it makes sense. And I often tell people the piece of software that we're going to need to be able to project your long-term care needs and costs hasn't been invented yet. But when it is invented, the name is going to be crystal ball, because literally that's what you're going to need, because nobody knows what the future is going to bring. Remember, it's always going to happen to the other guy. I got that. It's never going to happen to you. But someday it will. And I just don't know when and to what degree. So yes, when you put money aside, especially under my approach, you hinted with what I call the see-through portfolio. And that is if you entered retirement with just a big $2 million portfolio, and I pull some of it off for what we call it your minimum dignity floor, saving, which is the food, utilities, transportation, housing, and healthcare. Once I pull that off, then I go in and we start looking at the buffer, which is the savings for emergency part, aging expenses. People don't think of this. It's not long-term care. And sometimes long-term care insurance gets a bad rap because people don't understand the difference between normal aging and truly needing and qualifying for long-term care. Not being able to cook or clean your house anymore, or do chores that you used to do, or difficulty seeing that you have to have glasses on or put a hearing aid in, or you walk really slow with a cane. That's aging. And long-term care doesn't cover that. But you have to. So that's why I keep aging as a whole separate expense. Now, many of our clients will say, hey, Jim, this fund number you have for me, that's how I'm going to cover my aging. I'm not going to dedicate money to it. Because in their eyes, mine included, when I used to always, I have 10 acres of land in Colorado. I forever used to do all the landscaping around it. Not so much anymore. My back hurts. I can't bend down as much anymore. My body is changing. So when I pay $1,000 to someone every fall to come in December when all the leaves have fallen and clean it up, that's fun for me. I don't have to do it. So aging expenses can be funded from your discretionary fund, or you can specifically earmark assets to them. But it's that L in the SEAL reserve, long-term care. That's the hard part. I freely admit that, because that's when you can't do 2 of 6 activities of daily living. And it's when you truly are at a horrendous point in your life. I'm sorry, but if you can't get out of bed, if you can't feed yourself, if you can't dress, if you've lost your continence, if you can't toilet, if you can't bathe, that's not a way to live. But many of us are going to be in that situation. And it could be because of something totally abrupt. You have a heart attack, you have a stroke, could be a little bit slower, you have Parkinson's or diabetes, or it could be cognitive from just normal aging because you lived long enough. But when you're at that phase where you now, again, it's just like the infant stage of your life, whereas an infant, you needed help with all activities of daily living.
Right.
But everybody loves helping a little baby. It's so cute, so happy, and you hold the little baby up and you make fun of having to clean it and change it. But people don't treat elderly the same way. And people fear that. And people don't want to step in. And yes, sadly, the people who didn't save for it and have to go in a Medicaid bed, that, in my opinion, doesn't employ the best people to be working in that place. It's not a wonderful way to spend the last few months or few years of your life. So it is a very difficult part of this because I don't have the crystal ball. And when we do it the way we do it, people literally see when they move money to the SEAL reserve, the savings for emergencies, aging, and long-term care, they take it from their fund. So I use the seesaw analogy. And on the left of the seesaw is you today. And on the right is the older you, who may or may not be here. I have no idea. But if we slide money over to the older you to help the older you, it costs the younger you.
Hmm.
And if I keep money for fun for the younger you, you're sacrificing that perhaps the older you would have needed it. And retirement planning, your job, Jason, and mine, is to balance that. You and I are that fulcrum where that seesaw is balancing. And that's why I often call it seesaw assets. When we satisfy your minimum dignity floor, and then we didn't talk about this, but we have another step for those who must leave a guaranteed inheritance, usually the special needs children. When we satisfy that need, the dollars left, we generally call them your seesaw assets. Do we move it to fun? Do we move it to aging? Younger you, older you. And that's what it comes down to. And those who don't have enough to move to the older, or those who, I don't want to say is selfish because you're being selfish to yourself, but those who want, like the McDonald'sization of society, I call it, you want it and you want it now, you don't want to wait. Those who want to help them now cost the older them. And as long as they realize and accept that Medicaid may be the solution, then that's how we build it in. But you're right, Jason. It is the hardest discussion as a planner to have with your clients, and it's the hardest calculation for us to make. And it is not a set it and forget it. The entire retirement planning process has to be an ongoing exercise that retirees do, whether they do it annually or semi-annually or on a semi-regular basis. It's all going to be driven by their complexity. But you can't do a retirement plan at 62 and say, oh, I'm all set. I did my plan. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm covered to 93. You can't do that. And aging and long-term care is one of those expenses that, oh, I'll be fine. My parents lived to 100 and died peacefully in their sleep. And then you get the call from someone's wife that John was the other man last night. He had a stroke. He's paralyzed. And now all of a sudden, everything has come crashing down. That's what makes this difficult, why we need a crystal ball. And I'm just waiting.
Yeah, hopefully eventually we get it. But I think one thing that I take away from the approach, and I implement this myself, is by segmenting out, or you could say bucketing or whatever it is, but into these different these groups, right? Your aging and your minimum dignity floor and your fund number. What I think it does for do-it-yourselfers or those working with planners, it provides clarity, which in turn can provide some peace of mind to spend. Because otherwise, you're like without breaking it out into some detail, and again, that detail is going to change. You don't know how much to spend, and I know you mentioned this a lot. And I find this as well with those I talk to, making the switch from saving to spending is really difficult. But if you can find comfort and solace in the fact that, okay, well, I know this, these funds are set over here for this purpose, and separating things out, it provides peace of mind to allow people to spend. And I think those with ample resources, like we all know, we're as humans, we're more susceptible to losses and fear, right? Fear and losses drive us. That's why the markets are down a little bit. Everybody goes nuts. But when the markets are on a huge tear, you don't see everybody out jumping up and down and happy, happy because we don't celebrate the wins as much. We're real fear averse, right? And so that kind of, I think, provides that clarity, helps people spend. What are your thoughts there?
Well, yeah, one of the reasons I don't like the safe withdrawal rate approach to retirement planning, which in the industry has become the industry norm, and don't get me going on that because there's a whole host of reasons that the industry does that. But one of the things I don't like about it is what you hinted on. People underspend. Now, hear me out, folks. There are some people who just for one reason or another did not save enough for retirement, and they may very well face the risk of outliving their assets. But those people generally are not working with me or with Jason or any of the other advisors out there. We just politely encouraged a client of ours to not hire us on an annual basis. that the $4,000 a year they were paying to have their assets managed and their plan updated wasn't worth it to them. They didn't have enough. And they took our advice on that. And that's difficult to explain that to people. But I freely acknowledge for some people, listeners, yes, there is a risk you can outlive your money. But for a lot of people who seek out professional help, who have the discretionary money and they want to pay for the convenience and the knowledge and the peace of mind, for those people, the chances of you outliving your assets are probably a lot less than what the statistics show, because the statistics show all those other people that I just referenced, and it brings that down. Same thing with life expectancies. Life expectancies include everybody from the Twinkie eating diabetic who lives on the street, sadly, to someone uber healthy with tons of disposable cash and sees 5 doctors a year for different physicals. It includes all of that. But studies have shown people of just middle class and higher means who have taken care of their health, if a couple reaches 65, the chances of one of them living into their 90s, I don't know the exact statistic off the top of my head, but it's quite high. It's north of 50%. So those people, yes, have the ability to live a long time, but I'm not saying that they're going to live so long they're going to spend all their money, especially if they've covered their food, utilities, transportation, housing, and healthcare with income that lasts as long as they do, irrespective of how long they live. It's that bottomless cup of coffee. The bigger risk for them is not spending enough when they can. Everybody thinks retirement is going to be the same as the accumulation years. It's not. You're not getting younger, stronger, and healthier. I just told you I'm hiring people for $1,000 to clean my yard, and I used to love doing it myself. I can't do it myself anymore, but I love paying them $1,000 to do it. We're changing. And we go through 3 phases in retirement. We didn't coin this phrase, and you've probably heard it. People use it. It came from a guy named Stein from Colorado from the 1970s. I think it used to be George or William Stein, Chris Stein, no relation. The gentleman who does my podcast researched him. But he coined, Jason, go-go years, slow-go years, no-go years. And that type of spending is for fun. I'm 60 now. I can't rake. At 70, I'm sure I'm still going to be moving, but I'll be slowing down even more. And at 75, 80, and that the true years for you to truly enjoy your fun. And for me, it's hiking, hunting, fishing. That's why I live in Colorado or maybe Ohio. I don't do the beach thing and stuff that you all do out there. But my window for doing that isn't growing, it's shrinking. And to tell somebody, gee, you can only spend 4% of your assets, and then 6, 8, 10 years into retirement to go up to that person and say, I got great news. You can spend even more. Your investments have done great, or your portfolio, whatever the case may be, 4% was too little. They're going to sit there and say, oh, great. Tell me now when I can't go do this anymore and I can't do that anymore. Mm-hmm. My dad, before he passed away, told me to tell my listeners, don't be a Debbie Downer. And he went on to share with me that in the retirement community he lived in, and he passed away at 89, they nicknamed the people who had money but could no longer spend it and had nothing but regrets, Debbie Downers. Because he said no matter where they went, if we were playing bingo, if we were eating dinner, if we were just talking, it was always, oh, I should have did this and I didn't do that. And they just would bring everybody down. And he said, don't let the people who listen to you be Debbie Downers. So that's my dad's advice. So you can't just spend recklessly. Yeah, sure, some guy in a podcast, he told me to go spend all my freaking money. No, it's not what I'm saying.
Right.
I'm saying to crunch the numbers, either on your own or with Jason. Figure this out, but don't be afraid to spend once you've taken care of your food, utilities, transportation, housing, and healthcare expenses. If those are truly taken care of and monitor them throughout your life, it's not a set it and forget it. But if you take care of those, and especially from an emotional standpoint, folks, if you knew, irrespective of what the markets are doing or the world is doing or where there might be a war going on as today or whatever, that paycheck is coming every month. Once you know that emotionally, and you know your reserve for aging and long-term care and emergencies, that SEAL reserve is there and protected, those dollars that are left are your fun dollars. Just go and spend them and have fun and enjoy yourself.
Yeah, so I'm curious to get your thoughts here. I've had this happen a couple times. We get to the fund number, we go past, we got our basic needs met, we got our aging long-term care, we get to the fund number, and there's still a high level of reluctance to spend. And there's also we've kind of talked through. There's no need to plan for an inheritance. There's no need to any big charitable, contributions down the road. This fund number is just their fund number, yet there's still reluctance to spend. And how I approach this, and I'm curious of your thoughts, is to almost grease the grooves a little. What I'll do is I will do a dynamic withdrawal guardrails type strategy from that fund number just to start to distribute the money, and I try to encourage them like, hey, this is coming, and so it's going to spend. And what I find is it's kind of like a baby step, an emotional way to kind of let them know, the money is coming in. And obviously, we're not, if they did have goals, for inheritance and stuff like that, we could look at all that kind of stuff. But what are your thoughts there of that kind of mindset to kind of grease the groove, so to speak?
We don't do something like that. We don't send the fun out automatically to them, say, hey, it's coming, you got to do something with it.
Right, right, right,
I understand your train of thought because studies have shown, folks, money coming in, you have no problem spending
right.
because you're so used to it. Throughout your working career, you were paid a salary. Your money came in. You knew it was never ending. You could theoretically be laid off at any time. And if you stop and think about it, employment was less secure than Social Security, pension, and income annuities, the three forms of what I call secure income, that bottomless cup of coffee. Income annuities are contractually guaranteed by the insurance company. And as long as you're not buying your insurance from Joe's Used Insurance and you're getting an A++ rated carrier, I feel fairly certain with that. Your pension is backed by the corporation or the government entity. And in the case of corporations, most likely backstopped by the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, otherwise known as the US government. And then you have Social Security, which is also backed by the US government. And yes, you can go on social media and hear everybody and their uncle screaming that Social Security is going to go bankrupt. They've been doing that for the 30 years, almost 30 years that I've been in this industry. Ignore them. If you are collecting Social Security, I don't feel they're going to come after you at all. And if the US government can't make its obligations, there is bigger issues going on in the world.
Mm.
So Social Security, pension, and income annuities are more secure. The point is when we can review that with people, when we can get them to understand this fund number, I call it deferred spending. And I tell them, I challenge them to this. You don't want to spend it, but that's your budget. It's savings, it's investing. They can't get out of that mindset. Right. So I just say to them, it's a little test. Take $1,000 and give it to someone and tell me what they do with it. They're going to spend it.
Mm.
So the point is this. You are going to spend it. Your beneficiary is going to spend it. And your uncle is going to spend it. Your uncle being Uncle Sam. And he's going to tax the hell out of it, especially if it's in an IRA, at your death. But one of those three entities are going to spend it. You, your beneficiaries, or your uncle. Who do you want spending it? Now, if they say they're beneficiaries, okay, that changes the picture. I wouldn't try to encourage them to spend it. If their life's aim, if their goal is to leave a legacy to their children, then we would support that. But for most people we work with, they often say, I helped my children my entire life. I don't need to guarantee something. They get whatever's left with no dollar value on it. Special needs children aside, we have to do more for that. But when we run into people who don't want to spend, there's sometimes nothing you can do after that. They
Right.
just don't want to. We have people who live well within their means. They joke about it. They know they're going to die with millions, and they're content with it. But for many people, once they know their minimum dignity floor is protected with lifetime guaranteed secure income, their SEAL reserve, so the emergency reserve, the aging reserve, and the long-term care reserve is in place and being monitored. They have this pool of remaining fun. So I call it the fun number.
Right.
They see it. They know it's for fun. And I tell them, you should aim to die with nothing in that pool. You'll have money elsewhere and assets elsewhere. But that pool, your goal, spend it. And
Yeah.
if they don't, they don't. My job isn't to twist someone's arm and say,
Sure,
spend it,
sure.
damn it.
Well, I'm not, and that's not where I'm coming from either. I'm trying to help them kind of get over that hurdle of it's okay to spend it because I don't want them to sit in a place of like you said, it's savings and I don't want to touch it. That's where I'm coming from.
That's where it gets to be semantics in the sense you call it don't ever call it investments, call it reserve deferred spending.
Gotcha.
Get them
Right,
to
right.
understand that's spending. That's your spending money. Spend it.
Right.
And if you don't spend it, someone else will spend it. But don't forget, myself included, I've spent my life growing my firm. I spent my life growing my own reserves for my own retirement someday. I know it's going to freak me out when I retire. I'm not naive. It's going to freak everybody out when they retire. But the point is, when we work with people, if I go into retirement and I know the same thing, my minimum dignity floor is protected, my aging is protected, hopefully from an emotional standpoint, I'll realize, well, these dollars here are my fun, and I'm going to go enjoy it. I'm not going to be the Debbie Downer. And I don't know, I don't think our job, once we do all that, is to then force them to spend it.
Sure.
It's to give them the insight, the clarity, rather than one big portfolio where you're just withdrawing, say, 4% from it. And then you get into some market gyrations, and that one big portfolio is dropping because you look at it as one. That freaks people out. And the industry pushes with the safe withdrawal rate that, you just have to cut spending in a year that the market's down.
Right.
So I have a certain number of go-go years, and I have to expose those go-go years where I can be the other guy at any time to market whims. Gee, I'm going to hold off on my salmon trip to Alaska because the Middle East is being bombed. I have to put that off for something that's beyond my control, where I might not be here next year. That type of mindset can cause havoc on a retirement. But when you have the see-through portfolio and you see your secure income, you see your reserves to your secure income. There's the reserve part that I didn't get into. You see those dollars. You see your savings for emergencies, aging, and long-term care over here. When you start to be able to look into your portfolio and realize my fund, when we work with people and they have their fund number, we generally take a good portion of that and we put it in very safe, principally protected holdings. So people can look and see, oh, wow, yeah, there's down market right now, there's volatility, but it's my aging reserve that's going down. And we don't anticipate needing that until I'm 78 to 83. And I'm only 62 today. Gee, that money is fine to go up and down. But look at my fund money, especially the 50, 60% that we protected, that fund money is still safely earning 2, 3, 4%, whatever it may be,
Yep.
and it hasn't gone down. I can still go on that salmon fishing trip. That's the idea, to get away from this one big portfolio where you can't see what the hell's happening in it. And you're freaking out because money you don't need for 20 years is down, and it brought the value of your entire portfolio down. But the money that you were going to spend over the next 10 years is completely safe, but you just couldn't see it. I just figured, let's lift the lid on that. Let's pull everything out, invest them separately, and let clients see that their fund number is fully protected.
Yeah, I love it. It makes so much sense. And I would think hopefully more of the industry is adapting a similar philosophy. Because it just makes sense. We could go. I want to be mindful of your time here. We could go so deep, and you and Chris go down some great rabbit holes, and you go into a lot of detail. We won't be able to do that here. But one thing I wanted to ask you about is the future of the profession, maybe from a do-it-yourselfer's perspective of retirement planning, and also a financial advisor. How we approach it today is much different than what retirement planning probably looked like 30 years ago, and what retirement planning is going to look like in 30 years from now. Who knows, right? We have AI out there. When I had Andy Panko on the show, we were talking about, there's never been a better time for a do-it-yourselfer. All the information is right there at your fingertips, but that creates its own set of problems because there's a lot of slop. There's a lot of, maybe well-intended, but misleading and incorrect information out there. And it can be difficult to navigate. But if you just want to tell me from maybe AI or where you think this is all headed, or how somebody can sort out, if you're a do-it-yourselfer, the vast amount of information out there.
Well, right now, I think it's difficult because Andy is right that, yes, it's a good time. There's a vast amount of information, but you're right as well. There's a lot of slop. There's a lot of bad information out there as well. But I'm not throwing AI under the bus. It's definitely here. It's definitely here to stay. I think it's going to be the great equalizer in our industry. I think in the not too distant future, now by that, from an AI standpoint, 5, 8, 10 years from now, that's going to be very easy for people to do what you're doing. It's
Mhm.
going to be very easy for people to do what I'm doing. Is that going to replace our jobs? I don't know. I don't know if radiologists are going to be needed to read x-rays when AI can do it perfectly. I was at a tech summit, T3, a couple of weeks ago in our industry, and there was a presenter there. I won't name who this person was, but she was also the founder of an AI-backed firm for our industry. And we've developed a friendship over the past year because I'm evaluating her product. Anyways, we were chatting at lunch, and she pointed out to the advisors at the table that her firm is doubling in size on their engineers every 6 months, but that they do not hire junior engineers anymore. They've been totally replaced by AI. And a gentleman said, well, if you're not hiring junior engineers, you're only hiring senior engineers. In another 10, 15 years, you cut off your nose to spite your face. You're not going to have the senior engineers to hire. And she said, I won't need the senior engineers. And this woman was a very intelligent math prodigy who went to Berkeley at a very young age and is very involved with AI. And if she's sitting there saying that even engineers, computer engineers, are going to be replaced. I attended an online seminar just today before I asked you to push this out a little so I could attend one. And right before my eyes, he showed us how to get AI to write the code to create a client intake form that you can embed into your website. And it was done in 10 minutes. We just watched it. I didn't understand what AI was doing. I saw this code going by. I saw the prompt go in. I saw this code, and all of a sudden, up on the screen was the intake form. Done in 10 minutes when I would have had to have hired an engineer who probably would have taken weeks to program. So AI is going to change not only our industry, every industry. I think it will make it easier for retirees, but I also think it's going to expose us as we age and become less and less cognitively inclined. We're going to be more prone to fraud. We're going to be more prone to gimmicks. We could be taken advantage of. And I still think there needs to be that human that stands between the client and the AI, kind of that firewall,
Right.
if you will. And I think that's where advisors are going to stand. You're not going to need to go to school and learn the CFP. Sorry, CFP board. You're not going to need to learn any of the designations that you see. Some advisors, they have like a half a dozen designations after their name. It goes forever. Like they're just acronym collectors, I call them. You're not going to need any of that because all that knowledge is going to be known. It truly will. It's only 3 years old, AI, and look what it can do. My point is, if your client is going to be able to get everything they need from this, if their phone is going to know their tax situation, their income situation, their value of all their investments, their health, and integrate all their health findings in there, they can be doing the calculations within seconds and saying, slow down your spending, increase your spending, go see your doctor. Where I think we will fit in, where I think humans will fit in, we're going to be using the same tools that they can use. I think AI is going to be the great equalizer. There's no more, oh, I've got to hire this advisor because he can get e-money and he can pay e-money to some huge fee every year. No, you're going to be able to get that in seconds. The question is, do I want that human just overlooking everything? And I think that's where it will fit. I think your grandkids and your great grandkids will never use humans. And I think your firm and my firm and dozens of other firms across the globe are going to be gone because society is going to change. So you can get me probably way deeper than you wanted to go. I don't know if that's necessarily going to help retirees this second, but if you're a retiree today, I think 5, 6, 8 years from now, you're going to be looking at your relationship with me, with Jason, with anyone differently. And I think fees, Jason, are going to come crashing down because most people, and you know this, in our industry have no clue what they're paying their advisors. When we do better, you do better, Mr. Ken Fisher.
Right.
They have no clue what they're paying. But when your AI is going to say, hey, did you know you paid XYZ firm $64,000 last year? I had one client who paid $58,000 and had no clue.
Wow.
That's sad.
Yeah.
But my point is, even somebody with 500,000 has no idea they're probably paying 5,000-6,000 a year to an advisor who might call them once a year for an hour review. And they have no idea they gave them $6,000 to do that. People with 3 million have no idea that they probably gave around 25 to 35,000 to their advisor, just the advisor.
Right.
If there's a platform fee, if there's a direct index, so they got a direct indexing fee, if you have all of these gimmicky little things thrown on, this is going to be the great equalizer. When AI can sit there and tell people, gee, chat, what was my number one expense last year as a retiree? Oh, the $68,000 you paid your financial advisory firm was your first major expense, followed by healthcare at 39. I'm making these up.
Yeah.
But my point is, I think AI is going to help people more than hurt people. But I do think it's going to dramatically alter society and the 40-hour work week and careers and jobs greater than anything in the history of humans. When I get an engineer telling me she no longer hires junior engineers, and in 10 years she won't even need senior engineers. When I attend an online seminar and in minutes, a form to do a client intake, not that we need one, but the form for a client intake was the point he was making. This used to take weeks, if not months. I just did it for you in 10 minutes. It was amazing. Mm-hmm. And people don't know that that's coming. So learn it. Learn it is my biggest recommendation to your listeners. If you're not learning If you don't have a subscription to Claude or to Chat, to Gemini, and you're not practicing how it works, you're going to be left behind. Learn how it works and just be prepared for the great knowledge equalization. And the fact that you're going to be able to check your advisor and what he or she tells you in seconds.
Sure. No, I think yeah, I think you're right. And the ability to maybe benchmark your portfolio will be, in matter of seconds, whatever your advisor is doing, you can say, well, how does this actually, and yeah,
Well, you
it'll be
know the game with most advisors, they don't benchmark. We always
sure,
benchmark.
sure.
How are you going to measure what your advisor does if he or she isn't going to at least measure it for you?
Right.
But you are right, and I didn't think of that. You can easily, again, we're not here yet, folks, but you're probably 3, 6, 8 years away from, yes, being able to say to your AI agent, your own avatar, which is going to follow you around, that's coming. And it's going to know everything. And for you to say, hey, how did my portfolio do? What did I
Mhm.
pay this advisory firm? And how did it do relative to an independent portfolio? And within seconds, you'll be able to see, gee, you paid your advisor, I'm making these numbers up, you paid your advisor $28,000 last year, and their return mimics a moderate level of risk, and they underperformed a benchmark as measured by the Vanguard XYZ fund. I'm making this all up,
Right.
which outperformed it by 200 basis points. Maybe that's going to cost you to have a conversation with your advisor. What the hell did I pay you 28 grand for?
Right.
And then it's going to force the advisor to begin at least saying, yes, you paid me 28 grand. But I not only did I manage your assets, I did your taxes, we did this
Right.
tax planning, I did an estate evaluation. Maybe they are doing all these other things. And then it's going to force them to maybe itemize it and document it and say, yeah, here's the 28,000 you paid me, but my tax planning cost this, my tax prep cost this, my investment management cost this, my estate monitoring. The industry doesn't, I don't know if you don't speak for you, but we do. We give that. Here's what it costs.
Mhm.
But the industry as a whole doesn't do that. And it drives me crazy
Right.
that people are paying tens of thousands of dollars. And even if it's not tens of thousands, somebody with 500,000, and I know it, they're paying 5, 6 grand a year.
Mhm.
And they get no itemized billing, no benchmark to measure what the advisor did. If they're lucky, they get a couple of most likely AI generated emails now and a cursory annual appointment.
Mhm.
Is that worth 5 or 6 grand? I don't know. But I think AI is going to be that great equalizer to take the opaque and difficult to follow fee structure of our industry, pull it out of where everybody hides it under the couch,
Right.
throw it up in the open, and allow people to say, I'm not paying that anymore, or this is worth it. I
Right.
want to pay Jason his fee because Jason's going to do these 5 things for me. He has access to all these AI programs and I could do it myself.
Mhm.
And part of what I try to tell my staff and your listeners too is, again, yes, I hired someone to clean my leaves now. I pay them a grand. But on my button-down shirts, I don't have one on, you do. I don't launder my button-downs anymore. I don't have the time. I don't do it very well. I go and pay $3 to get them laundered. That's a convenience I'm willing to pay for.
Mhm.
People will be willing to pay for a convenience and they want to know what they're getting for that. But that's why I often tell anyone in our industry and anybody thinking of hiring an advisor, if you're going to be paying them, tell them to shove their little percent of assets up where the sun don't shine and tell you in dollars,
Right.
what are you going to pay? Could you imagine going to the mechanic and saying, it's making this noise. Can you look at it? And the mechanic calls you and says, yep, I figured it out. It's going to cost you 1% of your wealth.
Right. 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 Right.
You're going to be, excuse me?
Yeah.
Yeah, to fix it, it's going to be 1% of your wealth. Or if you went to the hospital and your bill was based on 1%, or you were going to hire someone to paint your house And they went to your house and they say, yeah, well, we looked up the value of your house at the county on the website. You have $1 million house. We charge 1% of the value of your house. So we're going to charge you $10,000. And right next door to you is a house worth only $500,000, but twice as big. And they're only going to pay half the price.
Right.
That's how our industry works. It makes no sense.
Yeah. And I don't see how any advisor is out there just operating off of investment management. Like, I mean, I would think we're past that where you have to be offering some form of the tax planning, just a high level, let's talk through the estate and all that to charge that fee. I think the good thing AI will do is, like you said, when it sheds light on it, I think it'll bring the scope of services, to a new level for advisors, and everybody's going to have to provide, the full gamut of services to justify, these fees.
I agree with you that the fee compression in our industry has not happened. And now Jason and I are geeking out, listeners, but the fee compression in our industry hasn't happened to the degree everyone feared it would. But service expansion has happened.
Right.
Advisors are giving more and more and more. I still don't like that. We're at our firm and many firms, not just mine, it's you want this, it costs that much. You want this, it costs that much. You want this, it costs that much. If you're still paying, it's this whole concept of the see-through portfolio. I can't see my fund, so I'm going to stop spending on fund in a down market, but your fund money hasn't budged. It can be spent. Well, you can't notice it because it's in one big portfolio. Shed some light on it. It's the same thing with advisory fees. My biggest beef with advisory fees isn't so much the uncapped AUM. It's that there's no itemization of it. You say, oh, I'm giving you all these other services. Great. How much am I paying for my tax prep, my tax planning, my estate monitoring and visualization, my asset management?
Right.
You just itemize it. Hospitals have to itemize their bill. It's a federal law. But we are not told that we have to itemize our bill, and people don't ask for it because 1% sounds like such a little bit of money. But that's the game. They hide their fees. If I was if you guys are listening to this and you are working with an advisor, just ask them to itemize and tell you in dollars. What are you going to charge me? And then every year I would go in, if I was a client, and say, can you please tell me in dollars what I paid you last year? Right in front of the advisor. I'd ask them. I want to know.
Right.
And make that advisor tell you, oh, you paid me $5,000 on your $500,000. You paid $28,000 on your $2 million. You paid $56,000 on your $6 million that I managed. Gee, $56,000. I could have bought my grandson a car for that. What did I get for that $56,000? And then maybe after they itemize it for you, you're going to be, wow, that was a steal. Or maybe you're going to sit there and say, seriously, I paid $56,000 for all that? All right, I'll be back in touch. And then you're going to go home and think it through. But this notion that they're going to bury a fee as a percentage of assets, that I don't like that, as you can tell.
No, I agree with you. Jim, it's been a pleasure. I don't want to keep you here too often. It's like I said, I'm a big fan of what you do on that retirement and IRA show. You and Chris, anybody who hasn't checked it out, check it out. So much great information there. And Jim, your firm, Jim Saulnier and Associates, if people want to find you, is there a website or?
You can look for our podcast, The Retirement and IRA Show. My website is JimHelps, JimHelps.com. We are not taking on new clients right now, but again, this is your show, not mine. But yeah, people want to listen to our show. We'd love that. That's great. You're more than welcome to listen to our show.
Great. Jim, thanks so much for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jason. We'll talk to you soon.
The opinions and statements presented on this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations. Never make any investment or financial decisions based on information offered on this show without first consulting your financial, legal, or tax advisor. All economic and performance information mentioned on the show is historical in nature and is not indicative of any future results. All indices mentioned on this show are unmanaged and cannot be invested in directly. All information is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. Lastly, all opinions expressed by Jason Cutitta and any guests on the show are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of or are endorsed by Toba Financial. For Jason Cutitta, investment advisory services are offered through Toba Financial LLC, a registered investment advisor offering advisory services in the state of Hawaii and in other jurisdictions where exempt from registration.